This is going to be a tough episode, but it's probably going to be our most watched one ever. Watch. Okay. Hello, Omniverse. I am Joe Bear.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Diego.
And this is Behind the Beard.
I'm going to say maybe not lack thereof. I feel like I've had some growth in this season so far. I feel like there's some definition coming in. Do we see it? What do the fans think? BTB at OIteam.com. Who's winning Battle of the Beard?
You know, I've actually trimmed twice this month, like to get it less unruly.
So is that new year, new you? Just beard maintenance?
I was just trying to keep you in the competition so you didn't give up. That's all. I didn't want to like overwhelm you in the beginning of the year, right? Anyway, this is Behind the Beard. And welcome to this week's episode where we hope each conversation sparks an idea, a thought, or help you journey to be a better you as we are trying to do the same every single week. Today, we're continuing on our topic of productivity. This is one of my favorite topics in productivity itself. In today's episode, we're going to be diving into the world of flow, that elusive state of mind where time seems to stand still and we're fully absorbed into the task at hand. Whether you're an artist, an athlete, or an entrepreneur, understanding and harnessing the power of flow can help you achieve new heights of creativity, productivity, and success. We'll be discussing the mindset behind flow, states to getting into the state, and how to use it to achieve your goals. So join us as we explore the powerful impact of flow on our lives and learn how to tap into it to achieve our full potential.
I'm excited about that, but before we head into the flow, Diego is telling us about some work trends that were happening. Now that it's kind of on my mind, I feel like we should flow into a few of those.
But before we can end our state of flow conversation, we need to flow on over to some work trends. Absolutely.
Yeah, the first one I saw was the workation. Workation, all I ever wanted.
So workation is what? What is a workation?
So workation is when you pack your computer, go somewhere nice, beautiful, and work from there, and just stay there like a month or something, and just kind of like change your location, but you don't go on a vacation, you go on a workation. So you're actually doing whatever it is your job and whatever schedule works for you, and then once you're done, out, take a swim, come back, and do that. What do you guys think? Are you up for a workation?
Between sessions of meetings here, I just hop into the ocean, but I'll be back. I mean, we do have contractors in Hawaii that do such things. I mean, I feel like that's a livecation, but I'm for it. And the thing we talked about in an earlier episode, like the digital nomad or whatever we wanted to call it, I'm cool with it. I feel like it would give a fresh perspective almost. Sometimes just changing your location. I even do it inside my house sometimes. I'll be like, I'm gonna take my laptop and work from my counter today or something like that. Sometimes just doing something so simple does make an impact. So I'm here for it. As long as I set up myself with the mindset though, like knowing that I'm going to work, because I don't want to get that mindset of like I'm going to take a vacation. Like I'm still going to have my responsibilities and accountability with me. So it'd be like a mindset thing for me. I have to prepare. What about you, Joe?
Yeah, I like it. I think it's important there if, we, as long as, as a contractor, we can work in that state specifically, right? If I'm going to go there and, maybe go see some family down in Florida in the middle of winter, and that way I can warm up a little bit, type deal. And as long as I can find a quiet place there and make it all happen as far as being on the phones, yeah, that's a great thing. As long as, it's okay and, it's a location that our GBAs can go work, absolutely 100%. For myself, I have done it in the past, and there's times where, my life takes me on a journey because of volleyball itself, and I do have to work in different locations. There's something about working from a laptop, and there's something working on a giant monitor or two that I happen to have in the setup, right? So it's, I try to save different types of work for the different locations itself, but I think, as long as it's reasonable and feasible, Yeah, let's do it. And then that way you have all afternoon, evenings, weekends, whatever your non-work schedule is, for your family, friends, or whoever you're seeing. Yeah, I love it. And then that way you can, continue on your journey, continue earning revenue. I'm all for that, and plus experiencing elsewhere, right? I don't think as a population we see enough places. So it's super important to keep that in perspective and keeps your mind open to all goodness that can come from learning more about life in different locations.
Yeah, keep exploring. And the good thing is now that you're getting like hotels and resorts are offering workation packages where you can get like an actual cable connection to the internet, quiet environment, and all that kind of stuff that you do need to work. And you do need to set that mindset, right? Because if you're like on the room right next to the pool and you're listening to kids playing in the pool, you're obviously never going to go into that state of flow. But if the hotels are starting to think about getting people to get there to for their workations, they're setting up the locations for that. Now the other trend that is interesting to me is Gen Flex. So that would be the generation that has never been to an office, and maybe that's and the most recent one will be the people that started working during the pandemic, but maybe there are some even before that have never been to an office, or I don't know, maybe it's just like a WeWork or something like that. That's where they got the first job, and then the company worked out of a WeWork or something. So what do you guys think about that? People that don't know what is a corporate headquarter.
I was technically kind of this person. I had a job briefly, like a work study in college. So like, part of your package of going to the school, you can sign up for work study. So I did that briefly in college, but I don't know. It's part of my career. Like it gave some foundation. It was ironically in a call center for the university, so definitely gave me foundation somewhere. But after a I guess, funded college job, I went directly to work at home. And I didn't actually work, besides a few business trips of just hopping in and give some meetings. I didn't actually work in a corporate office until COVID. I flipped the script, and for about almost, I think it was a year and a half, 2 years, or maybe a year and a half. I try to, anyways, I did work in an office. When everybody else was going at home, I took the opposite approach. Yeah, so and now I'm back at home, but yeah, I got my
Like you've
feet wet
never
lately.
you've never really interacted with what people will call a real office, because when you were there, nobody was there. So
Well, they called us since I worked in the solar industry. They called us what was it? Essential, because we were providing power. So everybody was there. But yeah, it was interesting to everybody else is like working at home, and I'm like, I did that for 6 years, and now I'm in the office. So here we go.
Zach, you're always essentially going against the grain. That's what
It's
we
me.
love about it. But yeah, I think that there is this new foundation. I think, the pandemic did help with understanding of remote work is possible for many different types of lines of businesses and people out there. Some people like it, some people don't. And I think for those that tried the different flexible models, maybe in the hybrid environment itself, I've been in office and I've been in a full remote position, and I choose full remote every time now. It would be tough for me to go. I see it, and I almost implore people to try both pathways, because you don't know what's going to work for you, right? If it's a co-working space, that's great. There's a lot of power of connecting, and especially when you're young, and getting a mentor in person sometimes is easier than over the remote, and they can kind of guide you along those different pathways. But the more we move into this remote first world, virtual work and mentors and pathways become more of a reality, and for this Gen Flex that's really coming through. And once you see the power of a remote first company, it's hard to go back in, and finding those challenges, for being a fully remote company. There's very few out there that do it really well. I mean, we're blessed here to be one of the top premier remote first companies. And not everyone understands what it means to go down those steps and those pathways. How do you work with our GBAs to understand what the gig model is alongside with being a remote first? And you can't just stand up on a desk and yell out to everybody, and everybody can call back they hear you, which I've done in the past. So how do you replicate that? But different pathways, studies, and technologies anyway. But I think there's power on both sides. Like, I'm not sold either way, but some just like going in office, some will never want to go in the office again.
Reminds me of last season's episode with Wes Galdames, and I guess we're going to have to put it somewhere here. But he was talking about that, right? The power of getting together with people. And we do that here with the Guatemala team every now and then, every other month or something. Someone says like, hey, let's get together. And a bunch of us get together. Or somebody asks somebody to go over to their place or whatever and work together. And there's something about like getting together with people and working with them. So it's like, yeah, what you just said, right? Even if we are remote first, there's something about working in the same space with others. Now, there's this other trend that, Joe, you're going to love, and that's Sukima. So in Japan, Sukima is something young people embrace. They're turning free time into extra cash with new apps that help match them with the jobs like waiting tables or making deliveries. So there's no time wasted, just extra money earned. What do you think about that?
I love it. I've always been somebody that's got a side hustle going on, entrepreneur spirit at hand, trying to create as many income streams as possible, right? So I wish I still had the energy of my youth to where, I could go and, really, really hustle more like that now that I know more, right? Just being able to go a little bit smarter about it. But I think it's super important, especially as we continue to evolve as a society. I think, in the gig model, it's okay, well, I want to go work a little bit here, right? I want that experience. I want to work with these people, love working with this group at the, waiting tables there, fun, exciting, good cash tips, whatever the case is. And then I want, something a little bit more solid, reliable, like an omni gig, and I get to choose my hours. And then I want to go drive for Lyft because I like getting out of the house every now and then, right? Those types of things. I think that's a real powerful thing that's happening. And I'm, pretty proud and, kind of go personal here for just a moment. My daughter's even doing the same thing. She's got a job. She's teaching kids to swim, but she's also working on a contract job to, for on the weekends, learn how to ref volleyball, right? She's been involved with that, and it's a 1099 gig. She can work on the weekends, pick and choose when she does want to work. But she's already in the mindset of school. I have my job. I have my fun thing. I have all these things going on. So I think it's, as this new generation comes alive, you're starting to see that Sukima coming a little bit more with that extra time is the extra money. One, we got to combat inflation. Two, things are not as cheap as what they used to be. So it takes a little bit more time, energy, and effort to get there. Zach, what are your thoughts on Sukima?
Sukima makes me want sushi. But outside of that, my take on it is our younger generations, and I probably lump myself early into that, is we know that there's more. I think that growing up in the age of the internet, being surrounded by influencers, we see it now from TikTok to Instagram to Facebook to wherever your social media presence is, there's a lot of influence going on. And just seeing like lucrative opportunities are out there, it's no longer like it's no longer sexy to like want to go sit at a corporate job for 30 years. That's no longer appealing to the masses, and that's my take. Why not push yourself? Like, there's an increase in self-worth that relates to this for me. There's a lot of push on identifying yourself as somebody who's worth more, and you're going to take that power into your own. So that's why this 1099 world is so powerful, and the gig world is so great for so many, because the power is yours to make it what you want to be. And this is exactly it, because I'm not gonna, you don't want to sit there and be confined to a cubicle maybe. And this is the exact way that shows I'm going to take my time and I'm going to make my time as much valuable as I want it to be.
I think you hit it right on the nail on the head as far as I'm going to take care of my future self by working hard today to develop more skills. We talked about skill creation in our last series. I think that's what this comes into. Everyone should be a waiter or waitress once in their life, or work a retail store during the holidays, or customer service one time in their life. Those are things that is okay. key foundational moments where people tend to be not so nice, right? And you berate, you yell, and like, something is wrong. And to understand that, I think since I have been in this industry long enough, I could have somebody I could tell is brand new on the phone. And it's like, I'm not going to get upset with them. I'm not going to learn this. I learned the skill and I see where they are. But then I'm also looking at it from a Sukima. I'm working many different angles. Well, I know what I want for my future self. In order to get there, I've got to build foundational skills. And in today's day and age, it's not built within, like you said, the one corporate entity that's going to teach you everything. Waiting tables Friday night, Saturday night is going to teach me something vastly different than working behind a cubicle is, in driving a Lyft or working a 1099 gig. But it's all going to lead up to the betterment of me for my future self to really take that next level of, okay, well, here's a new job that I probably never would have thought I ever could have done, but I built all those skills together that allowed me to align to this new world that we're in.
It relates to our topic today. These individuals who are either going through this Sukima trend or anything similar, they're finding what works best for their flow. It's that feel your best to perform your best. What are some ways, each of you, let's just dive right on into this flow topic of what are some ways that help you feel your best to perform your best in a flow?
Well, I'll jump in here, and we talked about it last week. Checklists is a great way to start. I'm planning my day. I'm planning it there. I'm going to fight like crazy for my time to hit that state of flow, right? Especially in today's day and age where you can be on meetings back to back all day long, and then it just drains you of your ability to hit any state of flow. And so then you're just hitting some of those busy work checklists. And if you don't build the time in, the time will be filled for you. So I'm all about building in the state of flow time where I know, and I've tracked over my years of when I'm going to be most creative, when I'm going to, that mindset where you're in the shower and you remember all those great ideas that you've forgotten over your life in the shower. Like we all could have been billionaires with an idea or two that came out like, oh, what about this? As soon as you turn the shower off, as soon as you get out, you forget what it is, right? It's hitting that state of flow time where you can like, bam, 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 you hit all of this, you get creative, you're able to formulate what you're looking for, and then you lose that moment of time because you're so engrossed, you're so happy, you're so just feel great because you're able to get something done that is outside of the normal everyday tasky work. That's my biggest thing is you got to prepare for it and you got to fight like crazy to keep that time and that capacity open.
I think you gotta plan for it because you have to know what are the best times for your flow states, right? And I've talked about this also in previous episodes, and it's like for me, it's early mornings, and I can tell you one example from today. So today is Thursday, so today we released an episode of Behind the Beard, and it was around 6:15 a.m. when I woke up with the idea for the description of the episode. And no chat GPT, no nothing. I wrote that one on my own. And
Nice.
I knew that, like, I know that early in the morning I can do creative stuff. So instead of being like, I'll write it later when I wake up, I was immediately up to the computer, write it down. And then I got into the flow because I uploaded to YouTube, uploaded to Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And I was just like sitting here working on that right away. I think if I will have said, no, I'll just wait for whenever I get actually start working, it will have gone away. Like the description will have faded and it will have been something completely different, probably AI generated. But I think it's about knowing when you can get into that flow state and then knowing what helps you get into it. Because, for example, to me, and this might not apply for everyone, but to me, it is a lot in what music it's playing, right? So if I want to get into flow state, it has to be something that has no lyrics. It has to be something that's kind of mellow or chill kind of music. And it has to be like there, but not distracting. But I cannot do it with like white noise, for example. Like I wouldn't go there. But to me, like the music really gets me into that flow state where time just fades and you just keep knocking task after task. And that's where maybe having that checklist helps you as well, because once you're in flow, like you just need something thrown at you and keep knocking them off. What do you think, Zach?
I'm pretty much a morning person too. I do have spikes though. Like I may have sacrificed and burned some of my dinner last night while I was cooking because an email came through and I was like, oh, I know exactly how to respond to that. Ran over to my office, which is off my kitchen, and maybe responded to the email too in depth, and in turn may have burned a little bit of dinner. So sacrificed my food for a good flow moment. But I think the part about flow, and Joe, you touched on it in the intro here, is, to my example, you get so focused on the task at hand and it's awesome that everything else kind of falls away, right? Like you're in the action mode, awareness is there and it's just merged together. You're not really thinking of like your dinner. You're not thinking of maybe Diego didn't have his coffee before he went into this creative mode. Like he was like, oh, coffee can wait for a minute. I got this. Like the time is gone, and right now your performance is through the roof because whatever has sparked this, you're now just full in. And I feel like that is the exciting part. But for me, it's definitely time where distractions, of course, are limited. And I have some flexibility and freedom to be able to do what I need to do. Like, for instance, if my daughter comes home from school and I'm in a flow state and she comes into my office, like it's immediately like, please go. Like I can't even have somebody in the corner of my eye. Like I have to have like a very tunnel vision focus or else I'm like, I lose it. And so that's for me one of the things. And I actually like music with lyrics. I'm very music, like whether I'm working out in the car, cooking dinner, working without meetings, like there's going to be music on, period. Like it's always been part of like my being. So for me, that also is just like a calm level set. And then the other piece that actually helps with my flow goes back to our conversation with engagement with others. Sometimes you can get stuck you can be in a flow and be really effective, but you need like a soundboard. And that's Joe and I do it often, but like we soundboard off each other and be like, I'm in the middle of this, I'm in the flow, but like can hop into somebody else's flow and just soundboard your thought, soundboard your idea, wording or something, and go from there. So I guess all that to say is I have kind of a culmination of ways that I maintain flow and then try to push children aside to not disturb the flow and sacrifice my dinner at times.
So what I'm hearing is the challenge is within scope, right? I think if the challenge is too far out, we need to take a step back, go for a walk, hit some creativity time. But the challenge is going to be a little bit above what you're normally there, but it's exciting you. It's going to push you to go a little bit further in there. And two is, in today's day and age, there is more distractions to avoid state of flow work than there are reasons to stay in the state of flow. So I know it myself, and while you were talking, I got a text message, and I'm like, oh, piece of candy.
Yeah.
Like, why did I do that? Like, that had no bearing on anything that I was doing. We get the same through Teams notifications. We get through life, a child comes in, whatever the case is. You have to set and define that boundary in that time for it to be known. And if you will it into existence, of course, there's always going to be like an emergency or a child cut their hair and you've got to go take the scissors away, true story, but you never know what could be happening. It's like when they get eerily quiet and you're like, something's not right. Anyway, I digress. But it really comes down to is you have to really put that focus in there, whether it's music, whether it's that. Well, one thing I heard is a really good pathway is video game music, right? The video game music is designed for you to concentrate on the task at hand and the level, the completing it, right? You know, the crescendo is always right before the boss is going to happen there. So, you know, when I really need to focus, like I'll pull out some video game music and then all of a sudden I'm right in there. Classical does the same for me as well. You know, but I think it's the characteristic of the flow is what we're trying to define, and it's complete concentration on a task. You don't have 20 tabs open. You don't have Teams, email, text, everything open. You have your tunnel vision of being able to focus completely on your goal and what that reward of completing that goal is, right? So it's whether it's work, it's learning a new skill, whether it's XYZ factors, you're able to focus in completely. What else do you think really hinders the characteristics of flow? What do you think are the big showstoppers, and how do we overcome those?
I think one is when you try to force it, right? When you try to force a state of flow, or when you're like overwhelm yourself with what you're trying to accomplish. And this might be completely different to how we overcome that, but I think one of the most important parts of getting into flow state is to have those distractions or times where when you're not working or tackling things, right? They talk about this a lot in fitness and exercise, and it's like your recovery is as important as your workout. I think it's the same when you're working. It's like the state of flow is as important as the time when you are not in flow, because that lets your brain kind of like do the connections that it needs to do on the subconscious level and let you come back to the flow. So I think one of the biggest challenges is when you think you need to keep pushing and it's actually time to step out and go away for a second.
I like that. Super
There's
smart.
a lot of self-awareness needed in that. I feel like that's probably something I could even work on sometimes myself. Is, are you actually, to your point with like the athletic piece, are you actually sometimes hurting yourself or hindering what could be great because you've set an expectation? Like to Joe's point with the text message, you've set this innate expectation that you have to respond to a text message in minutes. You have to respond to a Teams message in seconds. Like, are you actually hindering a better response or a better reaction by your subconscious saying, do it now? It's a really good point. My take, or I guess my hindrance, would be early around something that I think we do pretty well here at Omni from, our W2 side of the house as well as our GBA side of the house, is we give space to fail. If you don't give space to fail, then you don't have the ability to take risks. In risk taking is very synonymous with flow for me. If there's not any type of incentivizing for me to take a risk or push myself to get into a flow, I feel that there's a brick wall denying that access to get to flow. And that would be the biggest kicker for me. Like, if I'm going to put all this work into something, and what am I getting out of it? Probably that wall is probably going to stay up, because I'm going to be like, what's the flow? What's the point of flow? Like, am I going to put all this effort into it and see nothing at the end of the tunnel? That would be my biggest hindrance. What about you, Joe?
Yeah, you just blew my mind, because that's right there. Don't feel failure is a hindrance to what I am doing. It's expected because I'm pushing the boundaries of myself, of the organization, to push us forward. But if we're not hitting a roadblock or hitting a failure point, then we're not ever going to find our success point. And so when you feel okay failing fast, iterating fast, then all of a sudden your state of flow can come in there super quick. I like that you say that, and it's just, wow, that is amazing. Now, hindrance for me, this is the part where I get bored fairly easy. My mind works fairly quickly, and it's, the squirrel moments, like, oh, piece of candy, right? Like a text message, right? And it's hard to turn that off from time to time. So what I do to kind of counter some of that is, the Miracle Morning was a great book, a great read. You get up earlier than everyone else, then you got your routine, you got your time. You're able to hit that state of flow early before you even understand that state of flow is happening. I think it's Stephen King, when he's writing, and he was asked, well, how are you so prolific? He just gets up and writes. He just schedules the time and he does it. Like, does that mean everything he writes down is making it to the final cut? No, it doesn't. But you've got to go through the actions to get into that state of flow. And everything you do in the state of flow isn't all golden gooses. There's maybe you spend an hour and you're like, oh, this was a phenomenal hour. But then you go take a walk, you get on a meeting, you come back and go, what was I thinking? Like, none of this is relevant to any of it. That's okay. But it gets your mind into that state of flow, into that increasing that capacity of what you can do tomorrow, what you can do next or this afternoon. So I think that's, for me, it's more of the repetition and routine of how to stay in the flow. And when I find myself, I go on a staycation or a workcation, or I got this or that going on, or an appointment early in the morning, I feel next to impossible of getting back into that state of flow. I too am an early morning person when hitting that creativity juices. How do you guys stay in the state of flow or plan accordingly?
Well, before you were hitting on a point there, as far as the ability to get stuff done in the flow and how that impact is, and it really related to a great article I read from the Harvard Business Review. It was by Stephen Kohler. Hopefully I'm pronouncing his last name correctly. But anyways, it was titled Create a Work Environment That Fosters Flow. So a lot of basically what we're talking about today, right? He's the author of Rise of Superman. So to Diego's points, he examines extreme athletes and how they're able to use flow to achieve levels unlike anything we've seen before. We see them every year at the Olympics, we see them at the World Cup, the Super Bowl, or whatever those big stages are. We just see that somebody that comes to life and you're like, whoa, how did you do that? Like, you have the same amount of days in a year that I do. How'd you do that? And it really relates to, there was a 10-year study that was conducted by McKinsey, which is a research firm. But these top executives reported being 5 times more productive in flow. So pause, think about 5 times more productive. This means spending a Monday in flow, you get as much done as your steady state peers do in a week. Huge. So that's huge, right? But the other part of this is those same researchers, if we could increase the time we spend in flow by, say, 15, 20%, overall workplace productivity would almost double.
Wow.
So when I was reading that along, I was like, okay, that is something that pushes me to remain in flow. To your point is I push myself. I'm a Monday through Wednesdayer. That is by the book what I am. You start talking Thursday, Friday, I'm going to get a little grumpy because I push so much work into I know that's when I'm sharpest. That's when I want to go. I don't like end of day either. I'm like Diego. I want it done by the morning. I really want it done by early afternoon. And it's not because I'm going to do something. I just know that's when I'm sharpest, when I'm most agile, and when I'm going to get the best work out there. And so when something falls to end of week, I'm not saying I can't do it. It's just, it's going to take more effort for me to get in flow. So that's how, with the planner piece, that's what I do. I put the planner, I bulk things. Usually Wednesday is my cutoff to get the big lifting done. And that way I can kind of let my brain coast, I want to say, for Thursday and Friday. So I unloaded a lot right there, but yeah. That's me.
You made the plan, you're working the plan, and then you're recovering from the plan, right? And so that way you can learn, you can reflect, you can say, okay, well, what did work, what didn't work, and then you can start to get set up for the next week. That's perfectly reasonable, absolutely. Diego, what about you? What do you do to keep and hold on to your state of flow for 15 to 20% more?
I think I'm like you, that I get bored easily, right? So I try to, in between tasks that might get boring, try to get something that's going to be interesting, try something new, or how can we improve something, do something better. Like this week, I was working on some videos and I had never done like AI generated voiceovers. So started doing research about that and started looking at the tools and playing around with them. And all of that made a huge difference in my week because whenever I was stuck on something, I will go back to those videos I was creating. Right. So I think it's about that. Like what keeps my flow is to get things that I'm, I guess, curious by nature or something. So every time I start getting bored, I try to look at what else can I do that's still productive, but that is challenging or new or exciting.
Excitement in the work. That's a big key.
You know, and we all get it. We've all been there. A lot of tasks are not fun. They're not exciting. And once you do them on repeat, you're like, okay, well, how can I automate this? How can I optimize this? But eventually you get down to that core piece of it. And this is just what has to get done on a weekly basis. And that's okay. And that's when you start to really revel in that fact. You hit your state of flow on it. You challenge yourself there. And then that's where you start to teach others to take over on that. And that's how we expand our network upon itself. There's a ton of great books out there. You know, I think the article that you were reading, Zach, the Stephen Kotler from the Harvard Business Review, he's actually got a book, The Flow State, Secret to High Performance and Fulfillment, published in 2016. So it's an expansion on, I'm not going to try his name, Mahali. Anyway, just Google
expansion.
Yeah. In the high performance and creativity and well-being, really, the more you start to realize that state of fulfillment, that state of flow, you feel better as a human being. I accomplished something. I was excited about something. I was able to get out there and learn something more. And then you start to see it. We talked about it before, the 1% better. Then all of a sudden it's every day I want to do it a little bit more. How do I push a little bit more? How do I get a little bit more into that state of flow? And slowly over time, you start to ramp up on this curve, and all of a sudden you're just taking off like a rocket. It starts with just hitting what works for you and what doesn't. And sometimes you just got to go out there and research. What does it take to get in the state of flow? Atomic Habits is a great book as well, very powerful out there. And I would love to hear from everyone that's made it this far into the podcast. What helps you with your state of flow? Mir Uzak. What articles gets you there? What brings you to the point of state of flow? What is your favorite part of it? Let us know. btb@oiteam.com. I love hearing from all of you.
Just to that is that it's not always optimal to. I think we all go through, I guess, slumps, right? And maybe you have a week or a day or two where you don't achieve flow. There may be those hindrances that we said, or there may be just writer's block. I mean, we mentioned Stephen King. I'm sure that happens to him. Not speak for him. I don't know him. He is from Maine like me, so hashtag to that. But outside of that, I think just the realistic nature of it, right? The guy may have a day where I'm like, I never got into flow. Like maybe I had just way too many meetings, or maybe I just had so many different blocks that I just didn't get there. Could have been self, could have been influenced by outside pieces. So I think when you're looking at your productivity and how you can get to flow, just be realistic with yourself on it's not always going to be there, but push yourself to get there. And maybe it's like the article I mentioned, maybe it's you're going to be like a 4-day week and Fridays be nothing for you.
It is the other day, and I think it applies here. And it's like, don't focus on building the entire wall. Just go brick by brick, right? And lay one brick, see if it's right, if it's fix it, if it's crooked or whatever, and just putting bricks into it. And it doesn't matter if today you do 10 bricks, if tomorrow you do 3 bricks, the next day you do 0 bricks. But the important thing is to focus one at a time and keep pushing forward. And that's what really brings the productivity in you. Instead of focusing on like, I need to build this entire wall, you're never gonna get into the mindset to do it if you think about it that way.
Can't build the pyramid all at once. You got to go one brick at a time. Absolutely love it. There's also a newsletter out there, one of my favorites. Arnold Schwarzenegger's got it, and he recommends, and to kind of help keep this going, just every 30 minutes, hour, do 20 minutes of body work, do some squats, do some get up and walk around. It helps your body is connected to your mind. I know I find myself far too often with my watch yelling at me for not moving for the last hour. So
just got that notification during this.
Heed that warning. It's super important, and that's going to help your mind keep going out and learning more and really staying focused into the next piece of it all. It's all connected, right? Great conversation, guys. I'll leave us with a quote of the day from Susan Cain. This one is, flow is an optimal state in which you feel totally engaged in an activity. In a state of flow, you're neither bored nor anxious, and you don't question your own adequacy. Hours pass without your noticing. Woo, I want to be there. Thank you, Susan Cain. And as always, #keep learning, and let us know what you're learning about too. Please like and subscribe to our channel for more great content. And if you'd like to reach out to us, we welcome you to email us at btb@oiteam.com. Join us next week in our productivity series, Actions Over Busy Work. I am Joe Bear, and for my co-hosts, Zach and Diego, this is Behind the Beard. Omniverse to the moon. We are recording. He's got you on that one.